From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, May the 10th, the year 2017. And now here they are with a big smile on their face, live, still breathing on their own, Jim and Rich.
Yes, there we go.
And I finished my cookie, too.
Yeah, good timing, Mr.
I know.
Leon.
Oatmeal and raisin. It makes
Now,
it healthy.
I want you to observe, after that, rule number 4. We have no smoking, no drinking, no eating, no farts.
Well, I'll try to carry out with number 4.
Yes.
I ate already, but he put the food out. So
okay,
you know,
all right.
If he wants me to follow rules, don't put food out there, DeVita. Let's see. We haven't been together for a while. We've had the speaking of farting, that's what the Blackhawks did. The Bulls started out promising and then farted away.
Yeah.
Cubs haven't exactly been a sterling ball club.
No. And the White Sox, though, started out, but it looks like they may have hit a bad streak.
They may have hit a little streak.
Although they have a lot of pitching on the injury list, so that is not helping.
Yeah.
I was going to say, though, we a while back, the big event that we missed because of the nature of our broadcast being every couple of weeks was the NFL draft. You don't like it, huh? I think it's great.
I think we've talked about this. We've texted and we've talked over coffee. I don't necessarily think Mitch Trubisky was a bad pick. I just think you paid too much for him.
Well,
and he's latching himself to he's taking an awful risk with what he gave away.
What did he give away? That was so great.
Some draft picks that may turn out.
Well, if he did such a lousy job doing the trade with Trubisky, then maybe the picks wouldn't have been so great either.
Trubisky would have been there.
I have no idea. And he didn't want to chance it.
Trubisky.
You know, this is the typical Chicago fan, though. Cry. When are we going to take a quarterback? When are we going to take a quarterback? And as soon as we take a quarterback, oh, my God, we took a quarterback. We paid too much. If this is a franchise quarterback, he's worth a few middle-round draft choices.
That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see.
Well, that's what he's gambling on. It's his job.
He's gambling on it. He's attaching himself to the kid. And you know what? It's always interesting when you think about it. When somebody takes a quarterback in the first round, generally you hope you pay him for not playing that first year.
Yeah.
You know.
That'll be what happens. I mean, he may see the field once in a while, depending on the situation. But Mike Glennon will be the quarterback, and you know what? It'll be better for Mike Glennon. It'll be better for the Bears.
And I'm tired of poor Mike Glennon being at the draft party and finding out his replacement has been selected. Well, you know what? If somebody wants to pay me $18 million guaranteed,
you know what?
And I can watch my replacement.
Mike Glennon, what did he have, about 4 years with the Buccaneers?
Yeah.
And then say he's with the Bears a couple years, and say that he's a clipboard holder for another 5 or 6 years after that. I wouldn't mind, or with just like Jim McMahon, who went from the Bears to who was the Chargers, the Vikings, the Browns, the Packers,
the Eagles.
You know, so is that such a bad job?
He had a fine career.
Yeah,
I mean that 1 year with the Eagles, didn't he almost take him to the playoffs when who was the quarterback? Randall
McNabb or something, or Cunningham?
Randall Cunningham got hurt. And McMahon, bad shoulder, bad arm, and all.
Well, very smart quarterback, Jim McMahon.
Probably threw about 500 times that year.
Very smart quarterback.
Always was.
A jerk, but a smart quarterback. I'd say that, I think if I could understand Glennon's reaction, and as long as it doesn't continue, which and the only thing that usually continues it is the press.
Oh yeah, and that's what you're saying.
You know, Jim, though, to show you a typical Chicago way of thinking, I'm in Laser Nights on Sunday.
By the way, I love the remodeling on the front of the place.
Looks good
by there today.
And I won't name. I won't say who mentioned this because he'll never hear this broadcast. But I don't want to embarrass anybody on the air. But he says the first 2 games of the series are on Madden. He blew the first 2 games, and I'm thinking, well, the first game was like a blowout, wasn't it, or was it the second?
No, the first game was
was tight.
The first game was tight.
The Cubs were actually winning.
Yeah, and they blew it. The bullpen gave it up.
And
second game, Anderson couldn't get out of the first inning.
And actually, the sentiment is, I go along with the sentiment. I'm not a big Rondon fan, but the way I read it in the paper was that Wade Davis had worked the last 3 games, so he wanted to lay off of that, not ride that horse. So he put Rondon in. They lost the game. The complaint in the second game is that after a couple runs, he should have pulled Anderson instead of letting him go for 5. I'm thinking, well,
was it 5 or more?
It was 5, I think.
5?
And when it was all done.
When it was all done, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, that's all they scored in the inning because I think.
No, that's right. That's right.
Came in and then shut him down.
But he also gave up. I think he gave up. Somebody gave up 3 runs.
Yeah.
Or was that Zastresny?
But then,
who's back in the minors
as
now,
the
too.
evening went on, then of course the whole idea of the Game 7 in the World Series was brought up, and I'm like, wasn't it enough that we won? I mean, I get the argument. I think the argument's valid, but after you won, who cares?
Madden got the best line off of that. He said, there is no Game 8.
Yeah. I like that one.
I thought that was the best line of the whole explanation. Going back to the draft.
Yes.
There's two picks that really I think are very intriguing. The Adam the Machine Shaheen.
Yeah, big guy.
Big fella. Get a little fat off of him and you got Gronk.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they're going to make him reduce his weight. I think he'll
just
he'll go.
Solid him, make him a little solid.
Yeah.
And the I really am intrigued, waiting to see the defensive back from Alabama.
Yeah. Did you see in the Tribune on Sunday they had a recap of the draft, and I was interested to see. I was just thinking about this last night and anticipating the show. I'm glad you brought it up because I would have totally forgot it. But Nick Saban's comments about Eddie Jackson were very positive. Insightful, positive.
Yeah.
And what I found funny, and I was thinking about bouncing this off of you, Jim, which I will do now. I think part of his comment was something that Eddie Jackson is a guy. He knows when to tackle. He knows when to try to break up the pass. He knows when he tries to pick off the pass. And it made me think back to childhood days when you played a lot of games in the street or you went to the park or whatever you wanted to call it, the sandlot. And, you played touch a lot of the times, so you were in a position where you had to cover somebody. And I was thinking to myself, most guys that were, and maybe I am oversimplifying it, but it didn't seem to be that big of a deal. And again, you're talking about maybe 4-on-4 or 5-on-5, which simplifies it even more. But to make the decision whether just to tag the guy, to try to break up the pass, or if you thought you had a chance for a pick, didn't seem that difficult. Now, I will say it's more complex when you're talking about an 11-man situation and all the different things they do in pro football. Sure. But I think it's not complicated, but it is complex. Mm-hmm. But I would think the instincts, if you're a defensive back, should be there to do those 3 things. And if you don't have those instincts, you shouldn't be back there.
I would agree. And I read the. I didn't read that particular article, but there was a link to it somewhere off of Yahoo or that, and I looked at it. And Saban, who, by the way, is going to be coaching, I think, on this last extension till he's about 74.
Okay.
72, I think. No, I think he just turned 65. I think they teach him well there.
Oh, definitely.
They teach him well there, and I think that's a great pick.
Yeah.
And the other pick that intrigues me is Tariq Cohen.
Sure.
Because I think North Carolina A&T was that Willie Gallimore school?
No, it was. I want to say it was J.D. Pretty sure J.D. Smith, if you remember him.
Yeah.
49ers running back,
Yeah.
fullback.
Yeah.
J.D. Smith, I think, was there from there. And
I thought Willie Gallimore was
Willie
there.
Gallimore is Florida A&M.
Florida A&M.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah,
That was
Florida
it. He was Florida A&M.
And those schools, I'm not going to say they're in the same conference, but A&T is a predominantly black college. A&M, Florida A&M is as well. And I'm not sure how many of those schools exist at this point in time, but it's possible they could be in the same conference. I'm not positive about that.
But I think Cohen, I can see him. I can see him as a new Devin Hester.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Kick
there's
returner.
There's a lot of things he can do, and I think that even playing as part of the offense, they can utilize him.
I think so too.
He looks. I saw one picture of him, and he's not a big man, but he's well
he's
put
like
together.
5'6", 5'7".
Yeah, which is I over coffee. I the guys this guy's small and this guy, I don't know if any of them remember, but at one time in the late '60s, early '70s, the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, were the team that sort of made a fad out of small running backs.
Yeah.
I think Mike Garrett would have been in that.
Mike Garrett was 5'7", 5'8".
And who was the? Robert. I want to say Robert. God, it was a small fullback they had that was like in the 5'9" category too. I can't think of it. Robert Holmes.
Yeah.
Was there at the same time as Garrett, and they might have even had somebody else that was a backup that was in the similar category. And we always talk about these leagues being copycat leagues, and then a lot of the other teams started to look at those guys because basically what you're saying, okay, the man's small, but here's something that is a fact. The size of these linemen, the defensive lineman might not be seeing that back for a while when he's hidden behind these big guys. So it's not it's not a big advantage, but it's not a total disadvantage either.
No, it's not. And I seem to remember a fellow named Peyton wasn't overly tall either.
5'10" probably.
Maybe 5'10".
Yeah. So
which probably meant he was about 5'9".
Yeah, I mean,
I always remember reading the story in Brian's song when Piccolo came to town and Bruce Roberts came up to him, and the first question he asked him was, "Okay, Brian, how tall do you want to be, and how much do you want to weigh?"
There you go.
And
No, I think it's a pretty solid draft. I liked it because it's bold. It tells me that Pace is saying, you know what, I have confidence in myself, my scouts, and I think it's a bold draft.
This is certainly the picks there. Those last few. Those are obviously going to be how well your scouts have done.
Definitely.
That's what's going to be proven. That's the thing that Greg Gabriel was talking about on when he tweeted out that one day. Rounds 1 through 3 are for the decision makers. Rounds 4 through 7 are for the scouts.
See, I think Chicago fans, Jim, are really put your money where your mouth is type. I would say to them because you bellyache about this, you bellyache about that. And then when a team actually, does become bold, it's like, oh my goodness, why did you do that? So it's to me, I like it. I think it's a confident move. It's a bold move. It's a lot of good things. It doesn't mean that it's all going to turn out right, but I think if you don't do that, are you saying to me that you think? Now, I'm not saying you. I'm saying you in a general sense. But are people saying they think it's okay if the Bears don't try to be bold and maybe continue to have a second or third or fourth pick in the draft every year? People aren't going to be satisfied with that.
And people aren't now. The Bears are very close to, the once mighty. Got to spend your Sunday watching the Bears are now becoming somewhat of an afterthought.
Well, I will say this, though, Jim. The Bears, I'm talking with my son about this after the draft, and he says, well, I think you're really over-optimistic. I said, because I told him, the Bears will do, I think, halfway decent this year. Oh, I think you're over-optimistic. I said, you know what? 19 players spent time on the disabled list last year.
On the IR.
IR. I'm sorry, this disabled list is baseball.
Yeah.
IR. And I said there were. I mean, you got a guy like Trevathan was there twice. You had Alshon Jeffrey who got suspended. You had who's the other inside linebacker suspended. You had Leonard Floyd out for a while. You had McPhee that didn't start the beginning of the season. You had, I believe, Lamar Houston didn't. Was either him or Willie Young didn't finish the season.
Yeah. No.
You had Eddie Goldman out a lot of the season. So my point would be this: you didn't. There's your defense. I mean, how many guys did I just name on defense?
Yeah, you named a lot.
And then offensively, you lose Kyle Long. You had Sitton was not in the lineup all the time.
Yeah, Jeffrey's out.
You had Jeffries out.
You went through
had,
how many
Kevin White
you
played only a couple games.
And how many quarterbacks did you go through?
How many quarterbacks? So my point would be, I thought the Bears. I'm not saying 3-13 is a great record, but I think the fact that the Bears hung in with all of the injuries that they had was a good sign. And I also think that what people don't take into consideration, I think you saw it a little bit with the Blackhawks. The line that is a big scoring line with Kane and Panarin and Anisimov in the middle never really got going in the playoffs. But you know what? Anisimov,
your defense was horrible in the playoffs.
Jumped back into the starting lineup right at the beginning of the playoffs. I don't care who you are or what you are. I'm not going to say it never happens, but it's, you know what? You need a little while to get back, used to the guys you're playing with. And you may not be totally injured. You may be healthy enough to play, but maybe you're not as healthy as you would like to be. So nobody takes into consideration, say, okay, the guy is injured, he comes back. He's not starting where he left off. He's pretty much going back to square one or two.
Sure.
So there's a lot. There's a lot there that people don't take into consideration.
And just going back to the Bears, I noticed an item this morning. Bovada has the over/under on the number of victories for them this year is 5.5. I take it by your optimism, you'd take the over.
Yeah, I would take the over. I mean, why not? It's only talk, Jim. It's just hot air, so I'll take it.
And we do a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I just don't see. The other thing I would say is this: a lot of people are. I have a friend who's a good follower of football, and he's he cuts right to the chase. And he was panning Mike Glennon. He said, well, what the heck? He was a starter for a couple of years, I think, at Tampa, and then got beat out by a rookie. Happens. And I think maybe part of the whole deal with Glennon's reaction is, why is this happening to me again? Because, Jameis Winston was drafted. They put him right into the fire. Lovie Smith was the coach, so I think that was Lovie's guy, because if I remember, Lovie himself, I think, actually went down, or didn't have to go down. He was right in the same state, talked to Jameis Winston. They had some rapport. But I don't think this is the same situation for Glennon with Trubisky. And I also think that Glennon will be a little bit better than people may, well, he's a backup. He lost his job to a rookie. I don't think that means much.
I don't think that means much of anything either.
No.
He's had the opportunity to be a starter. I think that if you've got Trubisky sitting on the sidelines for a year, learning the craft. I mean, how long did Aaron Rodgers sit on the sidelines?
How long did Kenny Stabler sit on the sideline?
There you go.
So it's here's the thing. The only thing I would say is, and I don't think it'll happen, but I don't want the Bears to start listening to the fans. You know what? The fans are great. You need the fans to have the games. But you know what? The fans don't know what's from a hole in the ground, okay? Yeah. I mean, they're impatient, and sometimes you have to be patient.
I think there is a lot of impatience right now because they really haven't put out anything on the field the last few years.
Yeah.
that anybody is really interested in watching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the view of the draft, still think he's a good. I still think can be a good quarterback.
Oh, I don't see why not.
I don't see any reason why not. It'll be interesting to see the players that those picks turned into, what they wind up doing. I honestly expected them. I honestly expected them to go defense in the first round.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Because they would have been quarterbacks.
I would have thought that too. But then when I started to really think about it, I thought you had Solomon. Here's the thing. And not to downput these guys, because they may all end up to be great players. But as far as I'm concerned, even the first pick, who was, what's his name? I already forgot it. Who was the first pick in the
Miles
entire
Garrett.
draft?
Miles
who?
Garrett.
Garrett. I mean, it's like I always say to you, or you say to me, who he?
Yeah.
I mean, who
Yeah.
the heck is he?
And
then so I started to think, other than the fact that the Chicago papers started to mention Solomon Thomas and there's a Jonathan Allen.
Jonathan Allen was
And
the other
then
one.
there was the two safeties, Adams and Hooker.
Right.
And I'm thinking, now I'm turning into a fan, but also trying to say what's best for a football team. You know what? We have linebackers. We have, now maybe Allen would have been a pick, but even though they say not, I think maybe the fact that his shoulder injuries may have backed some teams off, including the Bears.
Including the Bears, exactly.
But I'm thinking, would you take... First off, you got again. I'm saying don't pay attention to the fans, but would you be willing to take the flack if you made a safety your first round pick? And the guy, I think clearly the better player was Adams over Hooker. But I mean, either one, I'd say to myself as a fan now, again, and saying the Bears, hey, if that was the best guy and that's who they thought they needed, okay, I get that. But as a fan, I would have been like, man, I don't know. Spending the third overall pick on a safety, is that okay with me?
No.
I guess it would have had to be, but it's
going to have to be some safety.
It would. Yes, you're right. It would have had to be some safety.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm saying, other than the fact that they were written up by the Chicago media leading up to the draft, I don't know who any of these guys are. I mean, including Trubisky.
Trubisky, you start to follow some articles and see that. Myles Garrett, I will be honest, I did not I was not very aware of Myles Garrett until I was I was in Sport Clips getting my hair cut and watching the TV monitor in front of me, and Warren Sapp was on.
Okay.
And I don't know if it was ESPN or the NFL Network or whatever, and he's going, Myles Garrett is not a number one overall draft pick. He said, Myles Garrett is a guy that takes 3 plays off out of every 4.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing somebody say that he made some, derogatory comments about one of the draft choices.
Yeah,
I guess it was Garrett.
And that made me think, well, okay, well, then again, it's Cleveland, so...
To me, it was... I guess maybe that's another reason I was sort of happy with Trubisky, because I understand all the other guys are good ball players, but I think when you get the number 3 pick and knowing, as you said, the last couple of years, not even the last couple of years, but let's say from Trestman or the last year of Lovey on forward.
On forward, this team has been a non...
Yeah, it's not been a real... what would you say it? One that catches everybody's imagination.
This team has been a non-entity in this town. And
so I think with that pick, you had to do something bold, and I think he did it.
Okay.
And that's good.
All right, it sounds good. We'll see what happens. I haven't counted the days yet to Bourbonnais, so we'll.
Isn't it May? Are the OTAs in May?
OTAs should be on.
Close. They're close.
They're close. I would think.
I just saw it in the paper the other day. I don't remember the dates. I think they have Did they have two? I don't know if they have two sessions or one.
Okay.
I forget.
I
Not a
can't-
big deal.
It's not a big deal. I guess the other thing that bothered me with the Hawks is all of a sudden you got a team that looked really old.
Yeah, well, I think you got. I think you said to me, or somebody had said, or maybe it was Billy Papish, who's a big Hawks fan. You got a lot of miles on some of those legs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, and you look, and Duncan Keith is 34 years old.
yeah.
And look and go, God, he gets old.
Yeah, no, I mean he's and he's a workout warrior and everything.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's maybe at this point in time, that's what he doesn't need to be, because he may be overworking to put himself in shape, but then a little tired during the season.
Well, I think did I read somewhere that Taze was going to lay off a little bit,
I think that's probably a good idea.
get some rest, because
Yeah,
he kind of hit it
yeah.
hard. He kind of hit it hard as soon as they got eliminated
Yeah,
last year,
yeah.
and worked out very strong all during the off season. And maybe it was too much.
Now, I think the ridiculous thing is, it's really it's aggravating just listening to people. I heard a few people say, well, Taves, you got to get rid of him. He's what are you talking about? You know what I think? You know what I think happened, Jim? I agree that the Hawks did not look quick.
No,
compared to the Predators.
They look tired and old.
But I will say this too. I think what contributed to that is the fact that, just think about this. Your first two lines were what Nashville really had to worry about. Taves and whoever he was playing with, and then the Kane line.
Mm-hmm.
The kids did a great job during the year, but I think the Preds basically said, no, we're going to shut these guys down. And if we're going to
Exactly.
get beat, we'll let the young guys do it.
That's
And the young guys didn't do it.
And that's exactly what they did
So
all the way through.
And which is a great strategy. And I think instead of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, let's let the young guys continue to develop,
Yeah.
bring some more people. I just saw that the Brinka, I don't know if that's the way you say his name, the kid that was he was there. He was the Hawks' first-round pick a couple years ago.
The kid-
but he was actually the second-round pick.
Yeah.
But he's had another great year in the OHL.
Yes, I read that too.
And they're saying, hey, that doesn't necessarily translate, but let's see. And he's an offensive force.
He
I
really
mean, he can be.
I think his the rap on him is he's small.
He's small. And everybody's saying, well, I've heard people say, Taves has not done as well in the playoffs because since Saad has been gone, we haven't had a big winger on his line. Maybe. But I'd say if you can play, I don't care what your size is. Kane's not a big guy. Panarin's not a big guy. You add some more guys like that so that now all the lines have some
Yeah.
lethality to them.
Yeah.
And, who cares what the size?
Yeah.
Then they got to cover those guys. They got to be worried about those guys.
Sure.
Now you can't focus in on just a couple of lines.
Sure.
And I think
You
that's
have
a
to,
good thing.
I think that's a good thing. And I give Q credit this year for using the young guys.
They had to.
He had to.
Yeah.
He really had to. And I think to a certain extent, this year, or what happened now, might be payment for the success you had
Sure.
in the past.
No doubt.
That might be the payment that this is what success over the last few years has cost you. I mean, the example, a great example. What was it this year? The Red Wings missed the playoffs for the first time in 29 years.
Yes.
Something like that. You're successful and you don't draft early.
Yeah.
Eventually, it catches up with you. I think what they say the Hawks, the highest the Hawks drafted since in the last few years was 18th.
Yeah, I mean that's well. The other thing, when you say the Red Wings, I think of the Braves. Atlanta Braves had a long run,
14 years in the playoffs.
and I think what ends up happening is, I hate to say it this way because you like to think of your teams having success always, but once you get to the end of that, you say, the Red Wings 20 some years, the Braves 14 years. the last few of those, you're a little bit running on fumes.
You're running on
barely
fumes.
making it.
Exactly.
And, so is it better to maybe not make it and start to tool your team, or is it better just to, it's a hard choice. I'm not saying which one is right,
Yeah.
but it's a hard choice to make.
Yeah. You ready, John? You want a break?
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. I didn't realize we were there.
You're listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, May the 10th, the year 2017, with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now back to Jim Leon and Rich Massaro and Armchair Experts.
All right, continuing on our merry way here.
Yeah. Do you want to continue with the Hawks?
The Hawks. I mean, the issue on the Hawks is there's and I don't think next year is going to be very good either. I mean, it might be a playoff team.
Oh, sure.
But you know what? I mean, you run up into a situation that success leads to big contracts
Yes.
and no move contracts.
Yeah.
And most of your salary cap is gone
Yeah.
right
it's
now
true. It is.
with these guys. Jalmerson may get dealt.
That's what they're saying. He's
They're
the
Jalmerson-
one guy that they could move. He doesn't have the no move
Yeah,
clause.
and I mean Scott Darling is gone.
Right. Well, of course, Scott Darling wasn't costing him
He
any
wasn't
money,
going to cost him
but he
anything.
was going to cost him money.
He would have cost him money, and I would have thought. I was kind of thinking, watching during the year, that I wonder if they'll let Crawford go in the draft,
yeah.
but he has a no move contract.
Yeah. He's going nowhere.
He's going nowhere.
Although, I mean, Crawford is far from the problem.
No,
I mean, there's no
I mean
problem.
he's not.
I don't think there is a huge problem.
I don't
just
think there is either.
I just think it's, as you stated so well, because of the idea of the salary cap and because you have to pay to keep your best players, you're in a situation where you're sort of hemmed in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I saw a thing that they said, it wasn't tongue-in-cheek, but there had been some rumors that Kane or Panarin might go to Buffalo and Jack Eichel or somebody like that would come back this way.
Can't see that.
I can't see it, but I mean, it's something that could be talked about. I'm not saying it should be done, and I haven't really seen Jack Eichel with my own eyes, so I don't know what he really brings. But then in the same article, for the first time, I saw that they mentioned Hjalmarsson.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I love Hjalmarsson.
I do
Everybody
too.
does.
Yeah,
but you know
everybody
what?
does.
I mean, I think you don't keep succeeding if you don't do things that you have to do.
Yeah.
You may not want to do them, but you have to do them.
Yeah. I mean that's exactly the
Thanks,
case,
John.
and the issue that they're dealing with is just like I said. You're paying for your
For your
success.
success.
You're paying for your success, and you may have to have. A couple of years being caught in hockey purgatory,
Yeah. Yeah.
where
you're right.
You may make the playoffs,
Sure.
but there's going to be that 1 year where maybe you just don't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And you get that opportunity, as opposed to the Bulls, who keep getting caught in basketball purgatory.
Yeah.
No matter how hard they try to be bad.
I wanted to talk about the Bulls, but I want to ask or throw out one other thing to you. I think that whether it's right or not, I think Quenneville is in a situation where if they don't produce something next
Right.
year, he's gone.
Right.
And
Right.
have they? I don't think they've named the new assistant.
No.
Yet, have they?
I don't think they have, and I know Q was upset when Kitchen
Right.
was let go.
And it'll be interesting to see which way that new assistant leans. Is he a Quenneville guy? Is he Bowman guy?
Yeah.
Because I just, as soon as they knock Mike Kitchen out of the box, I'm thinking, well, Quenneville better watch what happens next
Yeah.
year.
Quenneville better produce next year.
And the guy has been great. I'm not wishing that on him, but I think that's the way I see the handwriting on the wall.
Joe Quenneville's going to wind up in the Hall of Fame.
Oh God, yeah, he's the second winningest coach in the history of the league.
Yeah,
for God's sake.
For God's sakes, you don't let somebody like that go.
No, but I think the reality is that may be what's going to happen.
Yeah,
I mean, depending on how, and I'm not saying that they have to win the Stanley Cup, but the season has to look different, I'd say, in terms of the playoffs than it did this year. I put it this way: I think Stan Bowman might have even said, "Okay, we lose in the first round to the Preds, who look pretty darn good, because now they're going to be in the finals of the East."
West,
I should say. Nashville's in the West. That's right.
Yeah. Remember, Nashville's in the West.
And I'm thinking to myself, he might have even been able to live with that. But the way we got just swept out with almost no offense generated,
nothing,
that was. I could see where Bowman could be upset about that, but I don't really lay that on
3 goals. What was it? 3 goals in 4 games?
Yeah, something like that.
Some just god awful.
Terrible.
Shut out 2 games.
Yeah, I mean at home.
At home.
Yeah.
At home.
So.
Yeah, I mean when you have a performance like that, you're gonna.
You're gonna get somebody who's gonna be upset.
Somebody's gonna be upset.
Let me ask you, Jim, unless you want to continue on the Hawks.
Ask me whatever you'd like.
I would like to be either a fly on the wall or some way get into Fred Hoiberg's mind and see just where that poor guy is at.
I was thinking about that, going, "Oh, Fred, just stand up and look at both of them and go." And walk out the door.
I'd give him big time props.
After the old elbow, hand on the elbow salute there,
Because I'm thinking to myself, they, meaning Paxton and Foreman, give them a team that, they bring them in for a reason, then they give them a team that has really no... isn't lined up with the type of coaching he wants to do.
No, and then
he does a pretty good job with that.
And then that bald-headed domer piece of I won't say it, John, so put the phone down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has the nerve to say, "Well, we want Fred to spend some time becoming a better leader."
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you hypocritical piece of... All right, this time I'm going to say it. You hypocritical piece of crap. I listened to that news conference, and it was like, who are you guys?
Yeah.
You sit up there and go, "Hey, not our fault."
Yeah, that's amazing. Isn't it?
Not our fault.
That is amazing.
I thought about the book. I was thinking about this morning when I was standing in the shower before I came here. I remember a book that covered the first couple of years of the Mets.
Okay.
That was called "I Managed Good, but They Played Bad."
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking Paxton's going to write a book. I general managed good, but he coached bad.
Yeah. It's amazing, man.
And I'm going, oh, Lord Almighty.
And we're basically, we'll have a draft pick somewhere in the draft. Do you know what the number is this year? I mean,
I don't recall now.
But what's going to happen?
Whatever it is, they'll screw it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to basically have the same team next year. We may be minus. Who knows? Mirotic will probably go, but I understand they want him to stay, but he's going to test the market. Jimmy
Buckets, if somebody puts together a good deal, and the deal
they're not trade him.
The deal that Boston talked about was 2 draft picks plus 2 rotation players, and the names escape me. Bradley maybe was one.
Maybe possible.
And I can't think of who the other one was.
Crowder possibly.
Maybe Crowder. But that was the pick. That was the deal. that the Bulls were offered. Supposedly were offered, and they passed on it.
Yeah.
For whatever stiff that was drafted.
Yeah.
Instead. And I look at this and I'm going, what is wrong here?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know.
Let's put it this way. I don't think. I mean, all props to Jimmy Butler because he was like a 20-something draft pick.
Yeah,
He was and he's done a really good job. Improved. He's a very good player. Sometimes I wonder about his personality. I can't get a good read on him. But I think right now, and I'm not saying this it's going to sound negative. I don't mean it to really be that way because I think these guys are all good players. But we're basically stuck, I think, with Butler, Wade,
Yep.
and Rondo.
Yep.
Nobody's unless somebody really, really, really wants him, nobody's picking up Dwayne Wade's $23 million contract.
The issue is it's a player option for next year with the Bulls. And if he decides not to exercise his option, nobody's going to give him $23 million.
That's what I'm saying, Jim. Nobody's giving him $23 million.
He'll be a free agent market. He'll hit the free agent market, and he ain't going to get it.
Yeah.
Just like Derrick Rose ain't going to get a max contract.
No, that's
about that. I said that one for John's
benefit. I know that's for John's benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the interesting thing is, and I think I've mentioned this to you. I don't know if we talked about it on the air, but once in a while I'll hear part of a Bulls game if I'm in the car. And when Rondo came back into the starting lineup after being part of the second unit for a good part of the season, I'm listening to the opening remarks from Bill Wennington and Chuck Swirsky. And Wennington, who, first off, he's an ex-NBA player. He works for, basically, the broadcasters work for the team. I mean, I know they work for the station, but they're with the team. I mean, the team probably has some say-so over this. So, and Wennington's not a guy. First off, he's a guy who knows what he's talking about because he's been there. He's not a guy who shoots his mouth off in general, and he's not a controversial guy. His comment was, because Swirsky says Rajon Rondo's back in the starting lineup, and Wennington's comment, simple, straightforward, quick, was, well, he should have never been out of the starting lineup. And which I agree. I mean, the man knows what he's doing out there.
Yeah.
I mean, not that the other guys don't have talent, but this guy has proved over a long career he knows, what he's doing. He's got that ball. He knows whether he should shoot it, whether he's got to pass it, what he's doing.
Yeah.
And not to say the other guys don't, but they don't know to the extent he's mastered it. Okay, the other guys have not. And and I'm thinking, thank God that Hoiberg finally said to the front office, as you said, gave him the Italian salute and said, this guy's got to start.
Yeah. It was interesting, too, on the way over here. Apparently last night on TNT, there was a show, and I don't know if it was part of their NBA coverage, but Kevin Garnett apparently has this show.
Oh.
And I don't know, the first time I had heard of it, but I listened to they played about 8-9 minutes of it on the radio. And he had guys from that Celtics title team.
Okay.
Who basically, for 8-9 minutes, unloaded on Ray Allen for leaving them.
Oh, okay.
And it was a lot of petty. I think it was more of a lot of petty BS that he did it and didn't say anything to anybody.
Okay.
That was their resentment.
Okay.
From one person to another. Then they came back and they started talking to Rondo about where he is now. And at first, as I'm listening to all of them praise Rondo and talk about Rondo and the way it was sounding, all I could think of was Charles Barkley going, "Oh my goodness, this is just nothing but unadulterated butt kiss." But he talked about when he was starting and how he looked at some of these guys for the inspiration that he got. that I'd come in and I'd see Paul Pierce on the treadmill, and I thought, well, I better work hard and get my game up, get my strength up, and he's a very motivated type of guy, which probably is in a lot of instances in this league probably overly motivated. In a lot of instances in this league, that just doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And people, he's obsessive about it, and I think that's the rub.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And they all felt that if he hadn't gotten hurt, the Bulls could have very easily swept the Celtics.
That's good to know. That's good to hear from those guys.
From those guys.
Yeah.
I think I was a little bit surprised, although maybe they hadn't made their peace, considering Rondo the way he ran off about it, that the two clowns said we'd like to bring Rajon Rondo back next year, which I hope they do. There's certain guys. Lopez, I think, is one of those great, lunch bucket type of ball players.
Oh, definitely.
That'll go get you your points and be tough. Jimmy Buckets.
Jimmy. Jim. I just think, as good as Jimmy Butler is, and he really is, I just don't see him. When you think about the championship type players of the last 10 years or so, LeBron has been there, and you got Curry now, and you had Kobe at one time. Those are guys that you can put the game, I think, in their hands and say,
let them go.
Let them go. That's, you want it in their hands.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of nights that you can do that with Jimmy Butler, but there's some nights. I mean, when I see Jimmy Butler, that one, I don't know which game it was. I don't know if it was the playoffs or toward the end of the season. He had less than 10 points. And I'm not saying points is everything, but, I mean, when you're probably the main scorer on the team, they're pretty important. And I'm like, I don't see those guys having those types of nights. I don't know if they ever have those types of nights. When I see in the playoffs, I think one of the games in Boston, Jimmy had like 14 points. They basically, to me, if you're going to tell me if your name's Jimmy Butler, Isaiah Thomas, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, you're playing those guys and you're going to say LeBron James is going to score 14 points, I'm going to say we got a pretty good shot at winning the game.
We got a good shot at winning the ball game, and I mean, you had Wade with that one game with 2 points.
2 points. Well, but you know what? You cannot count on Dwayne Wade.
You can't count on him every night at his age,
right?
And with his injury history.
And that's the other problem. What the heck are some nights it's a really good option that you have Dwayne Wade as the second banana, but other nights, who is the second guy?
There is none.
So
you have to hope for somebody to come off the bench that might wake up. But we sat there when we played player more than a guy and dog ass bum. We got a lot of guys.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to apologize for my rating of Cameron Payne. I sort of looked at some of his some of the stuff that he's got on YouTube, and both in Oklahoma City and in Chicago, there's been some games where the guy could actually light it up. I think the problem is where he got. There's two things. You traded some good talent to bring him in, and you brought him into a logjam. So
you didn't need him.
That's the problem. You didn't need him.
You didn't need him.
That's the problem.
And you had. Was there an Iowa State connection?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. No. But I mean, the comment was, well, we liked him in college.
Yeah.
We liked him when he was in school. Well, okay. And I don't know if it's a case of yes, he's in a log jam, and there wasn't wasn't enough minutes in the rotation.
No, the man has
To
got
get him-
talent. I don't think he's a bum, but you
played-
brought him into a situation that is a no-win situation.
Yeah, and I mean the problem is he played like one while he was here. He might not be,
Yeah.
but he's never had the opportunity to. He never had the opportunity to show anything
Well, the problem
consistently.
is his problem is the same one as you have with, say, a Denzel Valentine or something. You don't have enough, as you said, you don't have consistent minutes to give him.
You don't have the consistent minutes, and I keep hearing the term with Denzel Valentine. He has to learn to find his offense.
Jim, I used to play just park basketball, park league basketball with Billy Prina. And
Sure.
Billy Prina was our scorer on our team.
Sure.
And some nights Billy would start out, and we talked about this. You know what? He might miss 4, 5, 6 shots in a row. And, at first, we'd sort of like, Billy, what the heck are you doing? You're not on. And he'd say, I'm a shooter. I got to shoot till I'm warmed up, and he would get going. And I would say the same thing. I'm not even saying shooting wise, but say for a guy like Valentine or Payne, especially a young player, to say Cameron Payne or Denzel Valentine, we're going to stick you in for 5 minutes, then we're going to pull you, and then the next time you come in, who knows? It could be
2 games.
in another quarter, two
games
from now. That isn't going to work. It's probably it could work with a veteran player because a veteran player is going to understand better. But my point would be, it doesn't have to be Payne or Valentine. It could be anybody. Yeah, look at LeBron James. I'm sure that it takes him a while to get into the game. I mean, almost watch the start of an NBA game.
Everybody, yeah.
It's sort of like it's easy. Then it's easy going, and then they get into a rhythm and they play.
That's why everybody says, "Well, all I need to do is watch the last 5 minutes of it."
Yeah, well, we know that's all BS too. But
Yeah.
but I mean, if you're a player, and you put it this way, in college you played a lot of minutes. You were a good player on your team. Hey, you know what? Maybe you need some time to get into the game. That's just the way it is for you. And these guys don't get that time, so they never look that good.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying that the game that the one Bulls game that I looked at from YouTube with Cameron Payne, I think he scored 17. I mean, but you could tell there was a long stretch of time. They gave him some time to play in the game.
Yeah.
Then he started to warm up, and he started to hit his three points. He was starting to warm up from 3 points. He was canning them pretty good.
Look at Isaiah Kane during this series.
Yeah,
All of a sudden, you hadn't seen him in weeks,
Weeks is right. Yeah.
and he comes out and starts firing him in.
No, these guys all have talent. It's just a matter of, again, being in the right situation, being in a situation where they utilize you and utilize you to your strengths. And I mean, I would say I don't care who you take on anybody's roster. The guys can all be contributing players if you give them a shot to do it.
Sure,
So,
sure.
and it's a tough situation, especially if you're a guy like a Denzel Valentine, who was really an outstanding college player and a big leader on his team. Now you're playing. Well, I play, then I don't play,
Then I
then
go
I'm
to the
hurt a little bit.
then I go to the D League. Then
Yeah.
I have to go out to Hoffman Estates.
yeah.
And I play a lot of minutes there. Then I come back and I sit on the bench.
Yeah, I'd say for anybody, it probably would tend to become a confusing situation at best, and who knows how detrimental it is at the worst. So yeah, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. Well,
Jim, before we go, oh my God,
Oh.
where this time is flying. I wanted to. I would have liked to touch base at both the Cubs and the Sox, but let's talk the Cubs a little bit and
all right, let's talk the Cubs a little bit.
yeah.
You first.
Well, people. I was thinking today, sort of in my mind, thinking about the Cubs in the same vein as I'm thinking about the Hawks, in that not that they probably wanted to do it, but you lose a Dexter Fowler,
Right.
and now you don't have really a logical leadoff man. I mean,
I don't
Schwarber's
think
there. but-
Schwarber is the leadoff. Should be a leadoff man.
No. And you sort of let Jason Hamill go, who's a solid. I mean, it was a 15-game winner.
Yeah.
And I understand, there's some issues with Jason Hamill. I guess it seems like anyway. But here's a guy who during the season will get you to the playoffs. Seemed to be totally fine with not really participating in the playoffs. He was satisfied with his role. And a good, solid major league pitcher. And you're replacing him now with a question mark. So,
You're replacing him with a guy who's had a history of back problem and is now on the DL.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking, I'm not saying that the Cubs season can't straighten out.
Oh,
What I don't like, Jim, here's what I don't like. And this is going to sound stupid, and it's an opinion, but there's been a lot of games I've been in where, say, your team gets behind early, and then you start to hearing about the second or third inning. A lot of game left. That is the kiss of death. And what I've been reading in the papers from Joe Madden, at least 2 or 3 times, he said, well, our best baseball's in front of us.
I heard
now, do
that,
you believe that, or are you trying to convince yourself?
I heard that today on the way over. That, our best baseball is still ahead of us. I'm not at this point in time in the season, on May 9th, as we're recording this, that I'm going to be in a panic over this team.
No.
Because there's still a lot of games left.
There is.
You've had inconsistent hitting.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do something at the top of the order because I don't think Schwarber's leadoff man.
No.
I think you should either put Almora or John Jay. And
yeah, I would say just let them get up there and do their thing.
One of those two, and
Yeah.
you drop Schwarber down in the order because I don't think you want a 205 hitter as leadoff man or whatever he's hitting now.
Yeah.
Rizzo's been very inconsistent, not hitting well.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't keep, your starting pitching has been incredibly poor.
Yeah.
I looked at, you may have somebody say, well, Arrieta's 4-1. Yeah, but he's got a 4.5 ERA.
Yeah.
And you know what? You give up too much in the first inning. You have to depend on your bullpen, and you're at a point where, what was this, over the weekend, between Saturday and Sunday, you got your bullpen going 18, 19 innings.
Yeah.
And you know what? The last time that a Cub bullpen had to go that many innings in consecutive games, 1961.
Wow.
I think they said May of 61.
Well, I just say this. I think that when you start to make comments like our best ball is ahead of us, this is, it sounds like a positive comment, but to me, who's been through this, I was with a team one year, Jim, that was set up. I mean, we thought we were really good, and we were really sort of like the Cubs are right out of the gate here. And all year, all I heard is, it's coming. We're going to be, we're almost, in every game, any good game that you had, I think we turned the corner now. We might not say that, but, okay, we got it now. That's what I'm hearing out of the Cubs. Yeah. To me, it's a danger sign. Now, but here's the thing I would say, though. Ron Coomer says it really well. I heard him say it the other night on the broadcast. Timing is huge in this game. Now, I bet you if you go back and you really looked at the way the season played out last year, and I'll make this as brief as I can. What he means by that is, say, okay, you play the Yankees this weekend. Now, say when we played them last year, or if we played them, we didn't play them, but say if we played them last year, the chances are, the record that we had, we were either going to catch them just as they're coming off a hot streak, ready to go the other way, or right before they went on a hot streak. My point is, it's huge where you catch a team. Are you catching them in the middle of a hot streak where they're going to be playing well? Are you catching them, hey, you know what? What I'd love, if I'm a good team and I'm playing another good team who's on a 10-game winning streak, that's beautiful. Because guess what? I'm good, they're good. They ain't going to go that much more than 10 games, okay? So this is a beautiful spot to catch them in the schedule. And I bet you any money that if you look at the Cubs season in that light, that, 80% of the time they were coming to play a team, or a team was coming to play them at a really good time for the Cubs. That's not happening this year at this point.
That's not happening this year. And you had a year last year that was, you hate to make it sound there, but you had a magical year.
Oh, for sure.
Last year. That it was one of those things that no matter what, something good was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you could sit there, and I mean, I thought back to '05, watching the White Sox, when they honestly, I mean, they struggled near the end to win their division, because everybody thought I think it was Cleveland almost caught them to win the division. But when they got into the playoffs, and I watched the first two games, and the person who was in my life then, I sat there, and we sat in her house, and I looked at her, and I said, get used to this phrase, you're world champion Chicago White Sox.
Yeah.
I said, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I said,
you could tell it was going to happen.
There is something right now about this team.
Yeah. I mean,
that tells me, I mean, the only thing that I had seen prior to that I could remember, well, the year before, with the Red Sox. What was it? In that one game, they were down to the final out.
Yeah.
They were down to the final out
to
be eliminated.
Yeah. They were.
And never lost the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Never lost a game from that point on.
Yeah.
You get that point where you get that certain feeling. I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing some inconsistency. And of course, everybody's also saying, well, the weather's been lousy, too.
Forget about that.
Don't
even bring it up.
Maybe some of it is lousy weather, and you got to wait for the to warm up, and the ball starts flying out, and everything else. But
the good thing about it is, if you are a championship caliber team, you don't make excuses, and you don't need anybody to make excuses for you.
No, you don't.
It just, you know what? Whatever, you know what? If you're out there and it snows 3 inches. First off, because you're all the baseball gods are lining up for you, you know what? Somehow that 3 inches of snow is going to work for you versus against you.
That's right.
And that's just the way it is. Again, we're 31 games into the season. Doesn't mean that the Cubs won't turn around and be a playoff team and maybe even win again. But it's a totally, as you said, last year was magical. Everything, the stars were all aligned.
Everything
this year is going to be,
place.
What are we used to saying in hockey? It's a grind.
It's a grind. And that's exactly what it's going to be. Yeah. Well, all right. I think we've overstayed our welcome once again. But that happens. But you know what, Rich? Our best broadcasts are ahead of us.
Of course. I'll tell you one thing about this broadcast. It really flew by. Man,
we never got into everything that we wanted to get into. By the way, I'm going to start working on a little bit more. Put our stuff up on a Facebook page. Leon and Massaro, the Armchair Experts.
How do I get on the page?
Once I get it on,
do you have a password?
Once I get it'll be a Facebook page. So it'll be a group, and I'll link our broadcast to it. Is that okay with you, Mr. DeVetta? Yep. Okay. And then we'll have other things that we can ramble on about I want to start doing some blogging. I've started to look at the Hall of the Very Good for baseball. Started to come up with some entries to the Hall of the Very Good. And maybe we might take that through some other sports, too.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It might be fun to see guys that we've, now it's lately like you've been doing to me. I have names pop into my head, and I got to go look at them.
Who was the guy? Ironhead Gallon.
Ironhead Gallon.
I almost texted you, and I can't think of the guy's last name. There was a guy who was signed as a free agent in football. Fish something.
Fish. Yeah, I
can't think of his name.
I missed that. I'm waiting for Ironhead Gallon to be playing with Kobe Buffalo Meat.
There we go.
That's the one I want to see. And Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, you know what? When you texted me during the draft, I thought you had indicated that we had drafted Schuster.
Oh, Steelers had him.
Yeah,
Steelers.
Okay.
And from the rep, it's probably a good idea that, or what I read, it's probably the best idea that we didn't get him because he appears to be quite a head case.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. All right, John, we'll get out of here now. We'll get out of the way. and we went through this. I think, hey, let's do this again next week.
That sounds good.
All right, that okay with you, John? All right, we'll do it all again next week, and we'll ramble on for an hour and 5-6 minutes. And till that time, we are Taillights.
I'm actually anxious to see.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, May the 10th, the year 2017 on Jack FM, 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chiconda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, May the 9th, the year 2017. Until next time, please be safe and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois. Have a great day, everyone.